Welcome back. Now, with about 8 million South Africans unemployed, having a job is a privilege. The country's unemployment crisis has made scores of people hang on to jobs they are not happy in just to have an income. While being fired from a job can be devastating, Independent Institute of Education's Rosebank College believes that this can sometimes be a blessing in disguise. Now, to tell us more about this is Alusha Mabunda, who is the head of campus of the Independent Institute of Education, Rosebank College in Nelson Mandela Bay. A very good evening to you, Alusha. I am really keen, and I'm sure so are our viewers, to find out what is the upside to being fired?
Good evening to you and to all our viewers. I think the one thing is the fact that you come to the realization that you will not be having any money coming into your account. That is the first thing that comes to mind when you're fired. And that sort of like clouds up your thinking about life or what the next step will be, because you're already certain that there's nothing coming my way and we all need money to survive.
So you're in this frame of mind. Let's say you've gotten a termination letter. Of course, the first thing that comes to your mind is loss of income. But you're saying that we should look at the upside of that. But what is the upside to losing your income?
It is a point for you to stop and reflect and look at what exactly are your interests, what are your talents, what are the things that you can be able to do that will help you find a way to bring in income without necessarily working for someone. And I think at most times, as you stated earlier on, if we are talking about a job that you dislike or you hate, or like they call it now that the work environment is toxic, it is sort of like setting you free to give you that freedom to be able to gain your life and not necessarily be chained to work just because you want money. So it is not all a bad thing. It also helps you to build resilience as a person to say, I can be able to withstand. I'm faced with this circumstance, but what am I going to learn from it? What am I going to make out of it? And also celebrate the fact that you have now been set free.
And while you have been set free, and maybe especially if it's a job that you didn't particularly like or it was a toxic work environment, as you've mentioned there, while you are reinventing and looking at how you can move into another industry, perhaps pivot as well, you know, there will be those bills coming in too. And you're saying that another option is to look at entrepreneurship as well, and not only looking at being employed by someone else. But we do also know that the barriers to access certain things as well, to become an entrepreneur, also have their own challenges too. How would you advise someone who's, you know, perhaps been fired from a job they didn't necessarily like, and they do have another passion, and they're thinking, but how do I monetize it?
You can look at starting off by just doing things, voluntary work, for instance, using that particular skill. I have seen recently there's this growing trend of people becoming content creators. There are people who are professional MCs at events. If you are a person maybe who has, just as an example, those kind of skills, you could look at building a profile to say, these are the services that I offer. And you then start engaging with institutions and organizations that require that type of service. And at the same time, it is also a point where you need to upgrade yourself. You look at the skills that you possess at the moment and see it as a way to upgrade those skills to match yourself maybe with something else that you are thinking of venturing into. And of course, entrepreneurship is not something that is cut out for everyone, but there are things that you can be doing in the interim just to help you to put food on the table while you realign everything.
I also find it interesting you mentioned voluntary work as well, which is an avenue that, you know, people won't want to really sometimes look into because, you know, you don't want to sell yourself short. But if you speak to anyone who's ever been unemployed or is unemployed, they will tell you about just this lack of purpose, you know, just being in this rut and in this slump. Would you say that volunteer work as well assists in that aspect to give you something to wake up to go to, a purpose, a passion as well?
Volunteer work definitely does help. And I mean, it's not every voluntary work that is done for free. I know there are honorarium payments with certain organizations, depending on where you're going. And you might find that someone who's actually doing that might even be making more money than someone who wakes up for an 8 to 5 job every day. So it depends on where you're offering those kind of skills as you are doing this voluntary work. And remember, that is an opportunity for you to network. As you're doing this, your prospective employer, if you are still looking into going into waged employment, may just be one of the people or the guests at that event. So it is a form of also allowing you to network and show your skills and demonstrate what you're capable of. So someone can just pick you up and say, oh, I noticed you were doing this. So what are you busy with? Then you explain, no, currently this is all I'm doing, but I am in the market. And you can start to engage in conversations that can open up doors for you.
You know, I think it was Oprah Winfrey who once said, do what you love and the money will follow, the money will come. Do you find also from what you experience from people that you speak to as well, and also as the educational institution, that when people start to focus on passion as opposed to monetary value, that they do end up finding success?
Definitely they do. But now the question is, you must always ask yourself, what is it that I am willing to do, that I would do at any given point without being paid for, and do it with my all? That is your passion. So I think the challenge is people struggle to find out what their passion is. And it's difficult to do that as you are working full-time in this job that you hate. You don't have time to reflect. You're always thinking about deadlines and how horrible it is for you in the workplace. So you never really have time to find yourself. So being dismissed from that kind of employment will give you the opportunity to sit and reflect and say, what are my interests? What exactly am I good at? And maybe reflect a few years back to say, at that point, what really did I want to become? Because we cannot shy away from the fact that we have a lot of people that are sitting in positions that they have taken up just so that they can have an income. So this now becomes a blessing for you to find out who you are and what is that one thing that you're willing to do without payment, because that is actually the same thing that will pay you.
Fascinating indeed. Alicia, thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. So hopefully they have helped somebody or some people who are watching this program tonight.